hope everything's going well. Today we are going to talk about speed pulls, so banded speed pulls specifically in the deadlift. So I'm going to show you how to set it up. I am going to set up with a guys bar because you'll see where I set the bands. I'm actually going to set them on the collars of the barbell rather than on the knurling, so it doesn't chew up my bands and I don't have to buy bands again in the next couple weeks, but it'll keep the bands fresh. So what we're going to need is you're going to need 4 pins. So I like to set my pins. You just pull this out. So here's what one of our pins looks like. I go 2 holes up. So I'm going to count 1, 2, and then I just stick the pin through. I'm setting up in a 6-foot section today because of, like I talked about earlier, we want the bands on the collars, not on the knurling, and I'm also using a guys bar for that reason. It's just a tiny bit longer. So once I've got my 4 pins in, I'm gonna start with blue resistance bands. Okay, so for the bands, you're just gonna hook them right around the pin. You can push the pin in if you want to, whatever works for you. Coming back. Push the pin in, everything's tight. This. Band in. I like to push my pins in just so I know the band is tight. Cool. So as you can see, I've got my band set up, and then I'm going to center my barbell right underneath of the band. Today I'm going to work on 8 sets of 2 at 50% of my 1 rep max. So like I said in the start, I have a blue band on. I would say a blue band is good for a deadlift if you're a female or a male with a 300-pound plus deadlift. If you are a male or a female with a 400-pound plus deadlift, you may want to use a green band, go up a little bit. And then if you're in that 200 to 250-pound range, you may want to stay with a red band. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing your band tension. And then also keep in mind that we want to stay around 50% of our 1 rep max deadlift, so we can be focusing on all of the speed and all of the power and not worrying about how much weight we have on the bar, but focusing on being explosive, because that's what these speed pulls are all about. So let me show you quickly. Once I have my weights on, you'll notice that my weights are actually inside of the band. So I have the barbell, I have my weights. You can even clip it if you want to right up inside of the band as well. But I've got my 45, my 15, and then my band just sits right on the outside. So that way, again, it's not on the rough part and it's not gonna chew up my barbell. I didn't just throw these plates on. Make sure you guys hit some warm-up sets. Hit some empty barbell deadlifts without the bands, hit some with the bands, start super light, make sure you're super warm so your body is ready to explode when you lift this bar every single time, okay? So, for the setup, I like to stick with a clean grip. So what that means is on the deadlift, I'm not flipping a hand, okay? So a lot of us, when we max out our deadlift, we turn that hand over. That's okay. But for these, I really want this to directly transfer into my Olympic weightlifting. I want it to help my power clean, my squat clean, my pull off of the ground for all of those movements. So I'm working on a double overhand grip. It is harder for me. So I always know that if I can do it double overhand, I'm gonna be able to flip a hand as well. Essentially, it's gonna be just like a normal deadlift. So what's gonna happen, I'm gonna start with the bar about 1 inch off of my shins. From here, my hands are just outside of my thighs, following down, again, in that clean grip. I'm gonna make sure I get set. So filling my belly with air, pulling my shoulders back, almost like I'm trying to rip the bar off the ground. Everything's tight, and so one common flaw that we see in the banded pulls and in the deadlift is we squeeze too early, okay? So we wanna make sure that we're pushing the floor away from us, we're staying nice and tight, our lats are engaged, and we're not squeezing our butt too early in the lift, because if we do that, then all we have left is our back to rip the bar up with, right? So we wanna make sure that we're pushing the ground away, holding tight with our lats, holding tight with our midsection, and then at the last second, we're squeezing our butt, bringing our hips to the bar to finish the barbell, or to finish the lift with the barbell. So all of those key points that I talked about are super important. Bar should be right over your shoelaces, lats should be tight, our midline should be engaged. We should be taking that breath, holding everything tight so we're ready to pull the barbell off the ground. But one thing that I've learned is definitely take your barbell, or take your breath at the top. So if I stand here and I take my breath into my lower abdomen, so not just into my chest, but I'm filling my belly, you can feel all that air down here in my stomach. If I bend down and I try to take that exact same breath, I can't get half as much air into my stomach, okay? So when we're at the top, before we lift, it's okay. Get yourself pumped up, get yourself psyched up, take your breath at the top, then go down and set up for the lift. So I'll show you what that looks like. So you guys could see the difference. I'm so much tighter. I've got the air right in my belly. Once you guys finish with your 8 sets of 2, 1 set every 30 seconds, you want to make sure that we take off the bands and we're going to work up to a heavy 6 today. So we're going to do that in 3 sets, and that's the key, because we want to trick our central nervous system into thinking that we still have that resistance and those bands on the barbell, so it's forcing us to keep the speed and the explosiveness throughout this heavy 6. So I'm going to remove my bands and I'm going to build up to a heavy 6 in 3 total sets, trying to keep that same power and speed while I do this. When you do your 3 sets, something to think about is you want to keep these sets quick, and you don't need to be doing 6 reps throughout all 3 sets. So essentially I hit 4 reps on my first set, I hit 3 reps on my second set, and then I ended with a heavy set of 6 for the day. This is usually the second thing I'm doing for the day, so I'm focusing on speed and I'm focusing on power. So today I chose to do it beltless, just to work on my midline stability, and it also kept me honest as to where it's not going too much weight to I'm totally just trashing my CNS and wrecking my lower back or my hamstrings and my glutes. So I think be smart with this, use it for power, use it for speed, use the 3 sets on the end to accumulate volume, and just make sure you take as little rest as possible after those banded sets and also in between your 3 sets to make sure we keep our CNS firing and we get that, we kind of trick it into thinking those bands are still on the barbell and we can keep the speed and the power throughout the lift. Focus on trying to take your breaths up top and see if that makes a difference for you, because I find that it really supports my lower back, it helps me keep my lats tight, and it helps me focus on keeping the movement more into my hamstrings and into my glutes. So I think these are super important. So if we would max out our deadlift, our central nervous system is going to be wrecked for about 72 hours. So not wrecked, but it's going to take us about 72 hours to recover to be able to get back to that 100%. So I really like doing these banded lifts with the banded squat, with the banded bench, just because it allows you to get the speed and the explosiveness out of the lift without completely destroying you, because we're working against resistance bands, not just loading the barbell with a ton of weights on the side. This is something that's also mirrors with the bench press. So you could, if you get the hang of this deadlift cycle, but the speed pulls, you could be doing these weekly just to focus on your speed, focus on your power. It should not be destroying you. And you could also do the same thing with the bench press. So it's going to be a really great way for you to accumulate volume, but not at the compromising your CNS, if that makes sense. So what I've really found helpful for these is recently, you know, I've PR'd my power clean, I've PR'd my back squat, I've just hit a snatch that I haven't hit in 3+ years. So I think a lot of that I attribute to this resistance training. It's keeping me healthier, it's keeping my joints feeling healthier, it's keeping my back feeling healthier, it keeps my CNS feeling fresh. And then I'm also working on that speed and the power that comes with Olympic weightlifting that me as an endurance athlete, I tend to struggle with. So if you feel like you're someone, you know, who has some strength, but you're just like, wow, I'm not snappy enough, I'm not quick enough, I don't have the explosive power, I think this banded and this resistance training, whether it's bench press, back squatting, speed pulls, whatever it is a super awesome thing for you to be incorporating into your training plan. The other thing I wanted to note is if you watch the video, you notice I was never touch and going these deadlifts, and I was always following the barbell down. So we should be focusing on pushing the ground away from us with engaging our hamstring and our glute, squeezing our butt at the end. Lats are always staying tight, even as I choose to follow the barbell down. So I'm never losing tension in my lats, I'm never losing tension in my midline, and I'm not touch and going these reps. That is a weight that I could have touch and goed, but that completely defeats the purpose of the dead stop, focusing on the explosive power and the explosive speed from the start, which is what we're gonna be needing to do if we're doing a power clean, if we're doing a snatch, whatever it may be, if we need to get out of the hole on the back squat. All of this can transfer together. So I just really wanted to share this with you guys. It's something that I typically do on my Wednesday afternoon session, which I absolutely love. 8 sets of 2, 1 set every 30 seconds. With the banded tension, I use blue bands at about 50% of my 1 rep max. I immediately strip the bands off. I add a little bit of weight. Be smart with your jumps. Only do what you feel comfortable to a heavy 6 for the day. And then I call it there. I feel like I've got some good work. I'm ready to hit some heavy I don't know, power cleans and snatches next week and see if I can transfer it.